Wow, good morning, everyone. All right, we'll try that again. Good morning, everyone. And what an amazing day this is for all of us here at the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. And so first and foremost, we thank you all for joining us. You would think that we actually had something exciting to announce today. And we do. And we do. And so on behalf of our board of directors, I see three members of the board sitting here in the front, our former chairperson, Ms. Betty Brown, Adam Sachs, who is vice chair of the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum's board, and Kevin Battle, who is the present chair of the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. I am Bob Kendrick, president here for the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, and on behalf of our entire team, a very dedicated staff, this is an historic announcement that we've been kind of sitting on for quite some time, and the future of the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum begins today as we prepare to build a brand new Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. This is literally 33 years in the making, because when this project started, and Congressman Cleaver knows this as well as anyone, when it started in a little one-room office across the street inside the historic Lincoln Building, and guys like my dear friend, the late, great, and of course our newest, most recent Hall of Fame inductee, Buck O'Neil, along with other Negro Leaguers who literally took turns paying the monthly rent to keep that little office open. And with it, our dreams of one day building a facility that would pay rightful tribute not only to one of the greatest chapters in baseball history, but what now millions of visitors have discovered, one of the greatest chapters in American history. And so that first phase of the dream was completed in November of 1997 when we christened this wonderful space. And I'll never forget, it was a star-studded celebration, and I remember the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar literally ducking lights as he was walking through this museum, and Bob Costas and Ken Burns, the late great Lou Brock, the Wizard, Ozzie Smith, Danny Glover, the amazing Rachel Robinson, who God willing will turn 101 years young in July of this year, all in this space as we had recognized that next phase of this dream. Well, just like the Negro Leagues, it is important that we continue to dare to dream. And through the leadership of our board, and through the dedication of our staff, and the support of so many of you who are gathered in this room, now is the time to continue to dare to dream as we look at building a Negro Leagues campus as the gateway into historic 18th and Vine. And I can't help but believe, Congressman, that our friend Buck O'Neil is somewhere in that great somewhere, smiling, looking down on all of us as this next phase of growth begins for his organization. We are now moving from the stage of being a great attraction, and we're proud that we are one of the city's iconic attractions, moving now to becoming an institution that not only documents and substantiates this amazing piece of baseball and American history, but also fortifying our position as one of this nation's greatest social justice, civil rights institutions. And that is what is so profound about this story that we've been preserving and telling for the last 3 decades. So I am really proud to welcome all of you here. I am thrilled to see that the great mayor of our city has joined us, and I know he's juggling a lot of different things. But before we unveil what we came for you all to see, what we wanted you all to see, I did want to make sure that the mayor also had an opportunity to come up and share his thoughts about this new beginning for our Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. Please welcome the Honorable Mayor Quinton Lucas.
Good morning. How are you all doing today? And I was just at a church, actually, so if I start preaching, I'll tell Reverend Cleaver to cut me off or something of that sort. I have a lot of positive feelings today, but I'm going to start with a little bit of a story. Not a long one, just a short little story. Sometimes in positions like the ones that Reverend Cleaver serves in, Mr. White and others, we have a chance to visit school communities all around our region. And I visited a school in the Northland of Kansas City, in the Liberty School District. And I happened to read Buck O'Neill's book. And my favorite thing in this classroom of probably 100 or so, predominantly white students, we got to sing Buck's song. And so I'm gonna make y'all sing right now, just to make sure you're paying attention. And y'all know it. The greatest thing in all my life is loving you. We'll do it again. And I'm not as good as Buck, but let's go again. The greatest thing in all my life is loving you. All right, now see, I see some of y'all who didn't sing, so I'm gonna come get y'all later. When we think about Buck, when we think of the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, we think of the stories of this community, the positivity that so many people helped exhibit through times that were a challenge, and frankly, the stories that we need to continue to share to children from this region, from around the country, and around the world. I had the good fortune, thanks to people like former Mayor Cleaver and others who invested in this region. I had the opportunity to live in this area for 12 and a half years, bumping into Bob all the time, just walking through the neighborhood. And the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum campus will continue to share that spirit for people who are both inside the museum, but who are just experiencing it and walking by. This is transformative for Kansas City. When people talk about what is the brand of Kansas City, sometimes people wonder what that's all about. There is no better brand that we export than the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, the great players, the great stories that we have here. I thank our outstanding partners at the Negro League Baseball Museum, Bank of America. I thank all of you. This will be something that will truly be special for generations ahead. And so, Bob, thank you for carrying this great spirit forward. To everyone on the dais, thank you for your investments, your time, and your exceptional stories about the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. And more than anything, thank you for loving us, this community, the children from this community, and the generations ahead that will know the great stories of the Negro Leagues and the great stories told at the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. Thank you so much. Keep spreading cheer, and let's have a wonderful recognition today.
Outstanding, Mr. Mayor. I really appreciate that sentiment, and you so beautifully brought forth everything that this project is all about. So, Adam, Kevin, if you guys would go ahead and unveil what this new Negro Leagues campus is going to look like before I bring up someone who is indeed very special. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the first glimpse. No, that's the next one. Yeah, no. Not that one yet. No. But if you would, please focus your attention over to where our lovely models are about to unveil what the future of the Negro Leagues Baseball looks like, and it is going to be dynamic. they don't get paid model wages, so. It's a tough crowd. It's a tough crowd. And so, folks, as you can see, that is a long ways from a one-room office, and it's a long ways from what we've done here with this amazing space that has welcomed so many people from around the world. You feel the spirit of the Negro Leagues when you walk into this facility. You can feel it. You can feel the spirit of Buck O'Neil, and you can feel all of those who helped shape this story. Because the thing that I remind people all the time, this was not a woe is mine kind of story. These athletes never cried about the social injustice. Oh no, they went out and did something about it. You won't let me play with you, then I'll just create a league of my own. And that is the American way. So as we continue our work, and I look at these amazing young people who are standing there over the wall, enjoying and soaking in and taking in this historic day, and thank you all for being here, because the motivation for us to do what we're doing is anchored in our young people who will have the ultimate job and the task of guiding us to where we need to go in the future as we continue to try and improve race relations in this country. And I don't know if there's a better story to use as an example of how to overcome adversity than the story of the Negro Leagues and this great museum. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome up next to share some exciting news with you, someone who has been a tremendous friend and a tremendous supporter. Bank of America has been a part of this organization almost from our very beginnings. And they have continued to really exemplify their belief in this organization, their embracing of what this history represents both on and off the field. And so it gives me great pleasure to welcome the president of Bank of America, Kansas City, Mr. Matt Linsky.
Thank you, Bob. And following the talent of our great mayor, I do actually need a pen because I was going to sing. So I'm going to just scratch, but thank you very much. And before I get into my remarks here about this exciting day, I just got a quick story too. So Bob lives at our household. Many years ago during COVID, during the Tip Your Cap campaign, that was my kids, who are 8 and 10 now, their first chance on social media. And because of Bob and all his followers, I became sidecar famous, and my kids looked up to me and thought I was cool. So Bob, thanks for letting me be cool. Last night, get home from kids' practice, and I was getting myself ready, putting out clothes for today. And my wife comes in, she goes, "You always get ready in the morning, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, tomorrow's a special day." She goes, "Oh, well, tell me what it is." And I said, "Well, I can't, but I'm speaking at an event, and I'll be with Bob Kendrick." And she goes, "Well, honey, just go pick out a white shirt, and I'll get you a tie, because no matter how well you dress, you cannot top that." You look wonderful. And thanks for laughing. Bank of America's relationship with the 18th and Vine dates back to the 80s, when our company's leaders served on the original 18th and Vine Authority Board that established this area today. The neighborhood has always been important to us, and we are proud of Bank of America's long-standing support of the Negro Leagues Museum. This partnership has helped fund many exhibitions, including Discovering Greatness, which travel to historically black colleges and university campuses to connect with young African Americans, to help them understand part of their heritage that they may have never known. Those exhibits travel to the very campuses that several Negro Leagues players were educated at as they grew up. In 2019, the museum was selected for our Neighborhood Builder Award. This is Bank of America's signature annual event that supports philanthropic programs. And Bob and the museum were gifted $200,000 over a multi-year period of unrestricted funding. Think about this. 2019, we did the great event. And a few months later, we had the COVID pandemic. And so for Bob to be able to get an award like this, deserving, the museum to get this award so deserving, and to have that flexibility to help him navigate some of the most challenging times our country has ever faced and may ever face. Bob has been a friend to me, to Linda Linza, to Bank of America, to all of us here today. Bob has provided thought leadership at numerous Bank of America events, including courageous conversations over the past several years and at the recent opening of Barrier Breakers that was held at Dodger Stadium. I can't think about a more telling time than June of 2020, when our society was going through some of the most horrific moments of our lifetimes. And we had Bob join a Zoom call. And that Zoom call, Bob was powerful, spoke with pride, was optimistic, and had the energy and enthusiasm of a young man. You're still a young man. And what resonates with me today about that is that as I traveled the country for our great company, meeting with other bank presidents like myself, numerous people came up to me and said, that meeting with Bob, that Zoom call stuck out. And then people started following Bob and paying attention to his podcast more throughout our company. And I don't go a day without traveling within my company to hear about that. So Bob, thank you for that optimism. We're excited to be part of the next chapter of this important institution, one that enables telling the Negro League story of tenacity and sportsmanship in a way that resonates with today's audiences, our youth. The state-of-the-art technology plan will help the museum further illuminate the legacy that transformed Major League Baseball into an integrated sport and deliver on its mission as a civil rights and a social justice leader and museum, providing thought leadership on issues like race, sports, diversity, and inclusion. On behalf of Bank of America, it is my honor and privilege to present the initial corporate gift of $1 million for the Pitch for the Future campaign to build a future museum that will maximize and expand the collection. This gift will help ensure the stories of the Negro Leagues players are preserved and their example used to promote understanding and racial tolerance for our youth for years and years to come. Bob, thanks for your leadership, thanks for your vision, thanks for your friendship, and thanks for your partnership, and congratulations.
Well, that's one of about 25 more million that we're going to have to get. But hey, you can't get to 25 without one. And I could not be more pleased with the continued support of Bank of America. As Matt has mentioned, this partnership and the value that we feel that is so important in this relationship that we've had with B of A for quite some time, and we're excited that Bank of America will be a part of this exciting next step for this great museum. And Congressman, you have my word that when we get this new, I'm going to pay you that dollar for every year that we owe you for being in this space that you said we haven't paid yet. And there would be, and I say this in all sincerity, there would be no Negro Leagues Baseball Museum without the leadership of then Mayor Emanuel Cleaver, now U.S. Congressman Emanuel Cleaver. And this vision that he had for 18th and Vine is something that we knew we needed to be a part of. And Buck O'Neill remained steadfast all the way until the day that that 94-year-old body just ran out of gas, that this was the place for his museum to be. And we never wavered on that decision. even against the fact that it was maybe not in our better business interest to be here. There were better opportunities for this museum that would have been more foot traffic, maybe even more resources. But I don't believe that 18th and Vine would be what it is today had this museum turned its back on it. We had a historical, we had a social, and we had a civic responsibility to build this museum right where it is at historic 18th and Vine. And that is still the spirit that we carry. We are firmly committed to everything that you see, the energy that is swirling around the historic 18th and Vine Jazz District. And it is really special that the spirit of the Negro Leagues continues to drive and do exactly what Negro Leagues Baseball did for urban communities across this country. Because wherever you had successful black baseball, you typically had thriving black economies. And so not only is Bank of America investing in this museum, but it is also investing in this community right alongside this museum. And someone who knows this museum in and out, because he was part of that early group of those who reached in his pocket and took turns paying that monthly rent, and he knew so many of those former Negro League players. He is 8-time Gold Glove winner, Royals Hall of Famer, and of course, Jackson County Executive, Mr. Frank White.
Good morning, everybody. I'm not going to take a long time. I know that I'm glad we had one speaker in between the mayor and the congressman is not speaking, so that makes me feel good too. So those guys are hard to follow. So I'm just happy I'm here right now. But Bob was talking about it's 1990, and we did meet across the street, and we met with some of the former Negro League players. It was Buck O'Neill, Connie Johnson, Ulysses Holloman, Slick Surratt, Woody Smallwood, Jess Williams, and some other community leaders who are really interested in getting this museum going. The first director, Don Motley, was there. So we did talk about this museum. This was a dream of all the Negro League players. This is what Buck O'Neill, this is what they wanted to see. And we're sitting here today in that first dream. Today, that dream just took another step, and I'm sure that all those guys would be looking down on us now, really excited about where we've gone with this museum. And I just want to give Bob all the congratulations. He's done an outstanding job of marketing, promoting, fundraising, the board, the staff of the museum that have worked tirelessly to put on different events, all of the investors in this museum, and today $1 million from Bank of America. That's what Bob does. So when I was invited here today for a big announcement, I said Bob is getting a big check from someone. But I didn't realize that this was even bigger. So I'm just happy to be a part of it. I like the mayor. I have a strong tradition in this neighborhood. I grew up in this neighborhood and went to school here, but it'll take you too long to tell that story. But I just want to say I'm just proud to be here, proud to be a part of the museum, proud to know Bob, and I'm proud of the staff and the great things they've done for this area. And just can't wait to see the new building. I think it's going to be just tremendous. And dreams do come true, guys. And we're seeing it today, and we're just going to see this one through. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Frank, and thank you for your continued commitment to the area that you grew up in. And it means so much to have those who were around to understand what this museum was when it began and what it has become, and to embrace what it can be, because honestly, y'all, we feel like we've just scratched the surface in terms of what the impact that this great organization can have moving into the future. And I'd be remiss, I don't know if there are any gamers in the house, but some of you may know that the Negro Leagues are now in the video game MLB The Show. And as we start talking about the impact on these young people, that's where that impact is felt, because we're engaging with them where they are. You see, as an institution, we can't sit back idly and wait for young people to come to us. We have to go to them where they are in the modes and mediums in which they get their information so that we can get them to engage around history that hadn't happened in over 6 decades. Negro Leagues Baseball hadn't been played in over 60 years, yet the life lessons that stem from this story of triumph over adversity is just as significant today, maybe even more so than ever before, and they are gaining an interest and an understanding and an appreciation for diversity, equity, and inclusion through the use of a video game. And of course, I'm in a video game. So I've got a little coolness going as well, Matt. You know that now that I'm in a video game, everybody thinks I'm kind of cool now too. And so it's so exciting, but it's just an example of the forward thinking of this institution. And next, someone who has been a tremendous partner. I was sitting back looking at some photographs the other day, Sunday, December the 5th of 2021, when we all gathered here and we were anxiously awaiting the news to find out whether Buck O'Neil was going to be inducted into the National Baseball Hall of Fame, and everybody's trying to keep me calm, and I'm on edge, and I think everybody in the room that day was on edge as we were awaiting the announcement. And she was with us then, she is with us now. She has been, well, let me go back. The Sports Commission, even under the leadership of the late great Kevin Gray, had always been so instrumental in the growth of this museum. So it was almost a legacy moment when Kathy Nelson took over the reins for Kevin and has continued that tremendous partnership that we've always had with the Sports Commission. She is a dear friend of mine, and I would want all of us to tip our caps to her for what she and her team and the scores of volunteers, the leadership of our mayor, and that this great city did in hosting that NFL draft, because Kansas City shined in a tremendous way. Please join me in welcoming Miss Kathy Nelson, President of Visit KC and the Greater Kansas City Sports Commission.
I love how we're matching today, even though I too stress when I have to stand next to Bob. Bob, thank you. What an honor to be here today. So great to see so many friends out there in the audience today. As Bob shared, my name is Kathy Nelson. I serve as President and CEO for the Sports Commission, also for Visit KC, and truly an honor to be here on such a monumental day as we honor our past, our present, and now our future of what this means. And it truly has been an incredible week, right? I don't know about all of you, but I'm still a little tired. But thank you to everyone in the room who really made the NFL draft an incredible, incredible event for our city. And special thanks, I saw him earlier, my friend George Guastello. Back in the back, George. I mean, these tremendous, tremendous events that we host don't happen without George and without our friends at Union Station. So now it's really only natural to think about what is next for Kansas City. And I love how the media in the last 48 hours have said, what's next? I'm like, just wait. And here we are, this is what's next. What's next is a travel destination. And how do we continue to capture our place at the center of the world of sports? And I'm so proud that what's next is a brand new state-of-the-art institution dedicated to preserving and sharing the stories of the Negro Leagues. Each time we bid on or when we host a major sporting event, from NCAA championships to Big 12 basketball to the upcoming Sports Events and Tourism Symposium happening next week right here in Kansas City, the museum is prominently featured as a core part of our sports legacy. The Negro Leagues Baseball Museum is a treasure within our community and an asset to the work that both of my teams do every single day. And very simply, there is no other place like this in the country, and I don't think there's any other place like this in the world. It is the preeminent keeper of some of the most transformative moments in American history. In the decades that they played, the Negro Leagues left a legacy of blazing trails and breaking barriers, and I'm thrilled to know that those achievements will soon be on display in more detail as they continue to educate and inspire future generations. So thank you to everyone who has invested their time and resources to bring this project to fruition. Bob, I can't imagine how many thousands and thousands of interviews and appearances you've made, and Kiona, the hundreds and hundreds of phone calls and networking events. I'm just so proud of both of you and so appreciative of all of your efforts to continue to make Kansas City shine. You are truly wonderful ambassadors for us. When we go out to attract business to our city, we always brag on Bob and the museum, and all of you and your support means so much to this event, and I cannot continue to bring many more events here and showcase all the great things happening here at the museum. So congratulations, Bob.
Thank you so much, Kathy. And so it is only fitting that on the 103rd anniversary of the very first game in Negro Leagues history, the Indianapolis ABCs versus the Chicago Giants. Now, you'll see throughout most references that it's the Chicago American Giants, but it wasn't Rube Foster's Chicago American Giants. It was indeed the Chicago Giants, and the Indianapolis ABCs won that first game 4-2 on this historic date, May 2nd of 1920. Huck Ryle was the pitcher in that game. He threw the very first pitch in Negro Leagues history. And so how fitting is it that on this historic date that we start to make our pitch for the future? The pitch to gain the support that's necessary for this transformative expansion that we are about to all collectively embark on, the symbolism that goes into it, the educational impact that it will continue to have, but also the inspirational impact that is going to be felt by so many young people in particular, but also those of us who are young at heart as well when they walk through this new Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. And it's funny how things happen. I called my friend Jonathan Cole over at Pendulum, and I said, Jonathan, let's just meet over at the Buck O'Neill Center. Because at that point, I just wanted to see what the architect thought might be feasible to do if we were going to dream about the possibilities of building a new Negro Leagues Museum. We meet there on the dirt lot there at the Buck O'Neill Center, the site of the Paseo YMCA, where this history began. And like any great architect, he said, no, you can do that. You can build whatever. You got enough money to pay for it. And he went to work and put together this vision that you guys are seeing, and I would be remiss if I did not bring him up. He's the principal over at Pendulum, Mr. Jonathan Cole, to kind of share what drove this vision and what's going to ultimately create, we think, one of the most amazing structures in our great city.
Well, thank you, Mr. Kendrick. We would not have this opportunity without you and without Kiana, so I absolutely appreciate and am honored to be here. I'd like to tell my story with Mr. Buck O'Neill and Mr. Bob Kendrick, 2005 winter meetings in Dallas. It was icy.
Yes,
it was very icy. My job at the time was I think it was the traveling exhibit, and my job was just to make sure that Buck and Mr. Kendrick were good. And so whatever they needed, I was supposed to be there. And I didn't really know a lot about Mr. O'Neill at the time, which I'm sad to say. But if you ever see a room full of people and you see the crowd move like a school of fish, that was Buck's impact on the room. And I saw that again today with Mr. Kendrick in the room. When he moves through a room, people watch, people look, people listen. So it's an incredible honor for Pendulum. I mean, we design ballparks. That's what we do across the nation. To have the privilege and responsibility and be entrusted with that to design this facility, I think is incredible for us. It's very touching. My team, Bo Constant, John Imes, Teresa Cole, my wife, but also she controls the money. Dale Frommel, Cedric Lowe, Michaela Simpson, all of them have a hand in everything we do, so it's not just me. I hope what you see from this design is, as much as it is about history and the past, what you see is also it's about the future. And that's one thing that, I didn't know how Bob was going to feel about the design. When we showed it to him, he was like, man, that's cutting edge. And that's exactly what we wanted to show you today. And Bob also told me in a text, I sent the images to him in advance, and he was like, man, you don't have to put me up there. No, you have to be up there. So that very last image right next to Buck on that wall there, as deserved, Mr. Kendrick. Thank you.
Jonathan, thank you so much for you and your team and the vision that is being part of shaping this next direction for the Negro Leagues Museum. And the reason that people were moving out of the way when I came through, they were putting their hands on their wallets and their pocketbooks because they knew I was going to be asking them for some money. And that had more so to do with the spirit of Buck O'Neil. But, anytime that you can absorb the spirit of Buck O'Neil, it is always a wonderful thing. And one of the reasons that it was so important for us to start thinking about the future of this museum, and it really hit home over the last 2 years when our friends over at the Kansas City Royals made the entire month of February free for everyone who wanted to come and see this great museum. In 2022, we saw over 7,000 people come in the month of February. It was 3 times the number of people that we'd ever seen in the month of February, and February is typically a busy time for this museum because we get a lot of school-aged kids as they relate to Black History Month. This year, over 14,000 people visited this museum free of charge thanks to the support of Royals Charities and the Kansas City Royals. This museum, however, as beautiful as it is not designed to have that many people in it at one time. And while no one ever says a disparaging word, because there were scores of people walking in, it made the experience a little bit uncomfortable. And so it just reinforced the fact that we needed to expand so that we can better accommodate, so that we don't interrupt what this experience is all about for those who partake in it. If we were to secure a substantial collection, we would have no place to display it. And of course, as we embark on this next phase, for those of you who are listening around the country today, there will be a call for collection to be displayed in this new museum. And we hope that you will take as much pride as those who have contributed to this museum. I'd say 95% of the items that are on display in this museum were donated by the Negro League players and or their families. And so they felt like it was an honor for their memorabilia to be here and to come to life through the stories that we share. And we challenge all of you who may have access to collection to consider answering the call as we start to acquire more pieces to be on display, not just for the sake of having stuff, but to bring that stuff to life through this incredible story. And so one of our great friends and someone who has continually expressed his support of this museum and the future of this organization. And I'm thrilled that he was able to go to some meetings and be here with us today. And I joked with him when he bought the Kansas City Royals back in 2020. I have buyer's remorse when I buy an automobile. And he had just paid a lot of money to buy a baseball team, and we had a chance to talk, and I'm so excited that he is the owner of this baseball team, this team that means so much to this community. And we're so excited to welcome him home here to the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. He needs no introduction, but I will introduce him nevertheless, the owner of the great Kansas City Royals and one of the great civic and philanthropic leaders in this community, Mr. John Sherman.
Thank you, Bob. And not only would I not, you said I juggled some meetings, not would I never say no to Bob Kendrick, but this is also one of my favorite, and Bob knows this is one of my favorite places in Kansas City, and really anywhere. I think of it, I think we're talking about technology today. I think of it along with some of our other great cultural institutions here in Kansas City. National World War I Museum, the Nelson Atkins Museum, the Kaufman Center for the Performing Arts. We have a great portfolio of cultural and historic, and this is one of them. And the story, by the way, Bank of America, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for stepping up and setting the pace for us here. Now, we even have a representative from New York. He told me he was the Yankees banker, but I'm going to set that aside. And thank him for coming all the way from New York for this meeting. But this place, and Bob's talked about it a lot today. Major League Baseball has a complicated history with race, right? We probably have a scar that will never totally heal. And I love the way you describe it. You won't let us play in yours, we'll start our own, because that's what the story was about. It's about opportunity. But I think about, in fact, Frank White's always the symbol for me. I think about, I can't imagine Frank White not being a Royals All-Star, an 8-time Gold Glove winner, a World Series champion, because he wasn't allowed to play in that league despite his talent because of the color of his skin. And that's something, this is about opportunity, but I think it's something that Major League Baseball should never forget. But this story goes way beyond baseball, as I've said many times to Bob. It transcends baseball. It's about race. It's about risk. And when I listen to the story, I've always thought the Negro Leagues were about entrepreneurship. The owners, the players, the businesses, the communities that sprung up around them were about creating opportunity. And in fact, and this story, the story of the museum, really going back to Buck, is a story of entrepreneurship, of taking risks because of and I'm sitting here today, Bob, I'm an entrepreneur, I've taken a lot of risks, but I usually raise more than 1/25th of the money I need before I have a press conference, so you are an entrepreneur, but also I think, no question, we'll get there. Thanks for having me here today. I appreciate the opportunity to be with all of you. Good luck and congratulations, and let us know how we can be helpful at the Kansas City Royals. Thank you.
Well, John, there's an old adage that says, the good Lord takes care of babies and fools. And I'm not sure which category I fall in, but I know we're going to need a little divine intervention, and I know old Buck, and I get called on him every day. I tell people all the time, and I say it, and this is true, I talk to Buck O'Neill almost every single day. Now, he doesn't always talk back to me, but I talk to Buck almost every single day, and he is truly guiding my footsteps and the footsteps of our team. And this is not just a special moment for our board of directors, for me as the president of this museum, but our entire team, and I know many of them in the room, with the staff of the Negro Leagues Museum. If you're sitting, I know some of you may be standing, but can you still please stand up and be acknowledged, because this is as much a vision about them as well. Because we would not be where we are without their dedicated commitment and belief in what this museum represents. And I think we all share a level of pride every single day when we walk inside this museum, and we all operate through a common thread, that this museum is bigger than any of us, and that if we do our job and we do them properly, that we will leave something that will stand the test of time, that others will enjoy for generations to come, be inspired by for generations to come. And any time that you have an opportunity to leave a legacy, when you get to do something that you know is bigger than you are, I don't know if there's any greater reward. And so for that group of folks who lay it all on the line every single day, we're all part of something special, just as every one of you in this room. As we look at the next phase of growth for the museum, I don't know if we ran the video. I wanted you guys to see the kind of video look at the new complex, because number one, it was just so doggone cool, and Bo over at Pendulum did an amazing job of putting this little video footage of what the kind of a moving picture of this new Negro Leagues Baseball Museum facility. So I don't know if we can actually get that up and running, but if you could, Will, please go ahead and run that, because I wanted you guys, as we close this, to get a chance to kind of see. Paseo YMCA, and then the anchor of that is this new facility. The streetscape look at this great museum with the ballpark that Mr. Gates had the idea to replicate the Field of Legends with that miniature baseball diamond, and I see kids out there playing shadow ball. Now, they don't know they're playing shadow ball, which was a pantomime routine where the players in the Negro Leagues were so skilled that they would actually start throwing the ball around the horn, but Brian, at some point, they would discard the ball, and the fans never knew they didn't actually have a ball. And you see the kids out there mimicking that same thing, and so this is such, as you can see, that rooftop event space that will overlook the skyline in Kansas City, I think is going to be one of the most sought after special places in this city, and I can't wait to have event after event after event in that space. So you can see why we're so excited about this. And again, I want to thank Jonathan and his team for developing this rendering, and we'll be able to show you more of what this is going to look like as we move forward down this path of creating this new dynamic Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. That closes the formal aspect of this press conference. If anyone has any questions, we'd be happy to address any questions that you may have. Some of our guests may have some limited opportunity for one-on-ones, but certainly if you have any questions, I'd be more than willing to address any questions that any of you might have who are members of the media. Any questions for me directly, or if you want to get an opportunity to talk to some of our guests one-on-one, there may be some limited opportunities. These folks all have very busy schedules, and they've spent quite a bit of time with us today. But I cannot thank you all enough for coming and gathering with us today. This is truly a historic day, not only for the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, but for the baseball community and for our nation. So thank you all so much for being here. Have a wonderful rest of the day.